What's up, Worthoses? So, if you're like me, you haven't too long been done with reading the Throne of Eldraine, the Wildred Quest book by Kate Elliott. So, for those of you for which the story was too long, didn't read, or didn't want to pay the $3.99 to get past that paywall, I'm basically going to give you the run of the story as quickly as possible and give you all the key points to the story so you can stay up to date with the lore without having to have read the novel. It's 207 pages long, 17 chapters, about a 4-hour read from beginning to end. Of course, my reading was interrupted by things such as work and the rest of my real life, but you get the gist. About 4 hours of reading. So the book's broken down into two parts. We've got Harvest, which is actually really short. It's only about 5 chapters long. And then you have the Winter section, which is about the other 12 chapters long. So in the very beginning of the book, first chapter of Harvest, we are introduced to the character of Oko. He comes upon Garrick in the woods of this unknown plane, or at least unknown to him because he hasn't been there long enough to learn what the name of the plane is yet. He ends up enslaving Garrick due to his use of telepathy, which he's able to get past the curse that's haunting Garrick and use it to basically subject him to his will. So he ends up changing Garrick's name to Dog, and anytime he wants Garrick to do anything for him, he calls him by this name. Dog, get over here. Dog, do this. Dog, go there. And Garrick just obediently obeys. He always says, yes, master. In fact, he's told to call him master, and that's exactly what he does, which is unlike Garrick, so we know that there's some sort of spell work or sorcery going on to make Garrick his slave. So then we jump forward, we meet Will and Rowan, who are Prince and Princess of Ardenvale. When we first meet Rowan and Will, they have missed the procession for their father. He has to go around every year and tour the 5 kingdoms, so they know, for good faith, and just to know that their king cares about them. So they're supposed to go with him in disguise, but they both got distracted by their own little things and decided, we're going to try to catch up to them. Well, their mother, the queen, didn't want that to happen, so she told them they couldn't go, so they sneak out overnight. In doing so, they end up meeting Oko and Garrick. Well, Oko likes to manipulate people into revealing information, which is something Will likes to do, so he really picks it up when Oko begins doing it to Rowan. Rowan is about she's a really red character. She's very passionate about things, so she loves talking. So without too much effort, Oko is able to goad Rowan into basically giving him as much information about the plane as he needs. So that's basically what happens in the first part of Harvest, is meeting these characters. We actually end up at the end of Harvest learning that Oko has transformed himself into one of the king's closest advisors, because Rowan told him, of course, and ends up kidnapping the king, unbeknownst to everybody. Each of the kingdoms all thinks the other kingdom did it, with everyone especially pointing their fingers at Queen Linden, because they feel like she was also in the running to become High Queen, but ended up, for whatever reason that nobody really knows, subjecting herself to the High King and just becoming queen. So they feel like she has a motive for getting rid of the High King too, so they're pointing their fingers at her. End the Harvest. Then we get into the meat of the story, the Winter section. In Winter, the twins turn 18. They set out on the quest to find their father. That's what their quest is going to be. So the first place that they want to go is to Castle Vantris, and they want to meet this tall golden mirror called Indralon. But in order to speak to Indralon, you have to know a secret. Well, Will has a pretty big secret that he feels that even Indralon doesn't know. So at the anticipation of a secret unknown to him, they are given audience to Indralon. The secret that Will knows is basically he has visions of other planes and other things that are going on that he doesn't know. So he knows that Indralon probably doesn't know them either, which it doesn't. In exchange for the secret, they're told where their father is. They're told find the stag, find your father. And they're given a bunch of visions about where exactly this will be and all this stuff. One of the people there, lore mage named Elwyn, who actually is from Castle Vantris, she knows where it's at, and so she takes him to the Red Kingdom, which is ruled by giants, King Yorvo, and convinces him to make a portal for them to get to this place in the wilds. The wilds is the untamed part of this kingdom, basically where all the elves and fairies and things of that nature, wild things live. The King Yorvo ends up agreeing to make a portal for them. They step through the portal, they come to this place of power, they find the stag, but just when they're about to get the stag, they hear this loud whistle. Stag ends up running away, so the party ends up chasing the stag. They cross a bridge that they're not supposed to cross, and basically they end up coming upon this forked road. On one side of the fork, Rowan follows it down and discovers a band of elves. The Queen of the Green Kingdom, Queen Ayara, she's at this meeting of elves that she's really not supposed to be at. They go on this sort of ritual every year where they hunt down a certain animal, and the queen isn't supposed to participate in it, yet she does anyway, unbeknownst to the rest of the kingdoms and Queen Linden. So Rowan discovers that she does this. She goes back to the fork, tells party members what she's seen. They end up taking the other fork, and they come upon a fairy ring where Oko's there, and they notice every time they see him, he looks familiar. They get a headache, the twins, when they think about it, and it's because he has used his telepathy to make them forget about their first encounter. Well, it all comes back to them at this point. But Elwyn, being the blue lore mage that she is, notices that Oko isn't quite as he appears to be, and doesn't really dress in the fashion of somebody of who he tells them or leads them to believe that he is would wear or indicates. And so she questions him further. He doesn't like that when she calls him out at not being who he is, and so he turns her into a bird. They end up flying away. Oko stops at the end of the fairy ring and turns back into himself after Elwyn flies away in her eagle form. He ends up trapping the group inside a ring using vines to encircle the fairy ring and keep them from prevent them from leaving. So he leaves, and Garrick's left there. Well, Garrick, as dog, can't harm the twins because he's been given an order from their previous meeting not to ever harm the twins. So Will uses this to his advantage and ends up convincing Garrick to allow Cerise to take the hedron that's in his shoulder out. Well, she does it, thinking that it's going to remove Oko's curse and the curse that they don't know of, the Chainville curse, from him. What it actually does is send the curse into overdrive, basically. And so Garrick rages, he lashes out at everybody, but then realizes that the real fault is with Oko, the planeswalker, and so his touch is able to wither the vines encircling the party. So they leave, and they end up coming upon the hunt. Well, obviously, Oko has led the stag, which is their father, he's transformed, into the midnight hunt, and so they're going to, the midsummer hunt, excuse me. So they're going to end up hunting and killing their father. Well, at the very last minute, they come into a clearing where there's an old cottage, there's a well, the stag is hiding behind the well, the elves are getting ready to take their prey, and Queen Linden and some other Griffin Knights descend. They're like, hey, this is the king, please don't kill him. Long story short, the elves agree not to, but then Queen Ayara comes through with a bow and arrow, lets it go, kills the stag. They realize it's not Queen Ayara, it's actually Oko in disguise as her. So they end up getting Oko, using their powers, their abilities, basically, and they tell him, hey, you're going to stand trial for this, while Garrick's like, no, I'm going to kill that guy. They're like, no, he's got to, justice has to be served for his crimes, we got to take him. Oko, being the planeswalker that he is like, nah, that's not happening. Planes walks away. At this point, the king is dying, and the twins find out that their real birth mother was actually a witch who was using them, draining their blood. She was draining their blood to live forever. By drinking their blood, it would cause her to have eternal life, basically eternal youth. She had tricked their father when they were on the quest into living with her, and he had been gone missing for a year before the queen found him. And when he came to out of that curse from the witch, he actually ended up killing her. And Queen Linden was able to bring the twins back to life using that trick from that sword. Well, here in the present time, since the king's sword was still there, the one that he had used to kill the witch, it still had one life in it as well. So she, Queen Linden, was able to use it to bring the king back to life, even though he died. It's at this point that Rowan gets so upset about being lied to about the nature of their birth and how all of it came into being, the death of their birth mother and all that, that she actually ends up sparking. And because she sparks with so much emotion, when Will goes to touch her, he ends up sparking as well, as they share the same spark, being twins, and they end up planeswalking away. Garrick knows what's up, but he doesn't let on to the mom and dad, the king and queen. He just lets them know, hey, I'll do what I can to track them down and make sure that they're safe, since he feels like he owes them a debt for freeing him from the Hedron, which was making him dumb, basically. And he actually ends up getting the whole curse removed. Long story, with Will, falls into this magical cauldron. The cauldron seeps away the curse. So we basically have good Garrick again, fully conscious, no more cursed by the chain veil, which is a good thing. So he's going to hunt down the twins, make sure that they're okay. I assume that when we see the twins in Battlebond, which story-wise would have to occur after this story, because again, this is where they spark, I assume he'll find them there. They've already become good battle mages at that point, participating in, the trials at Kylam pretty regularly from that point. I think they're crowd favorites. So, yeah, that is basically the Throne of Eldraine story as quickly as possible, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, Vorthon Vorthos.